Hello everyone. Today we are going to see about some basics of neuro assessment and neurophysiology. We always know reflex arc is a very important arc. You have to know. Testing the reflex integrity is very important. But what we infer from that is most often is not known to many people. Most often the reflex assessment is done as a formality in the neuro assessment as well as in the orthopedic assessment. So that is what we are going to see in a nutshell today. So if you see, the first thing what we are going to see is the reflex arc. You can see there is a sensory input here. There is some sort of sensation, in cutaneous sensation, that goes through the sensory nerve fibers to the posterior root ganglion here, and then the information is conveyed to the posterior horn cells. The internuntial neuron, which is marked in green here, carries the information, and the information is conveyed to the alpha motor neurons here. Okay, so this information is carried down to the muscle by means of a motor nerve, and the motor response is got. So if you are touching a hot object or a pin is being picked on you, this sensory input goes to the spinal level and you go for a reflex withdrawal. This is all about reflex arc. But when we are doing an assessment, we don't prick anybody to see the reflex arc or the integrity of the reflex arc. We do something called as a deep tendon reflex. Now we'll move on to see what is meant by a deep tendon reflex. When you see, this is the muscle. Imagine that this is a biceps muscle, and you are going to tap on the biceps tendon, where by tapping, what you are going to do is you are going to stimulate a sensory organ called as a muscle spindle. We all know that. So the fibers which are inside the muscle spindle is called as the intrafusal muscle fiber. You all know about the muscle spindle, which has nuclear chain fibers and bag fibers. The inside this muscle spindle, you have got the intrinsic muscles. So these are very sensitive to stretch when you are tapping the muscle tendon. So they get stimulated, and this information from the muscle spindle, intrafusal muscle fibers, is going to be carried by 1A fibers, and this 1A fiber is going to carry the information to the spinal cord, same like that of the reflex arc. The same information is conveyed to the alpha motor neuron. The alpha motor neuron sends information through the motor nerve fibers to the extrafusal muscle fiber. So one thing that you have to remember is extrafusal muscle fibers are large muscle fibers, and intrafusal muscle fibers are small fibers which are present inside the muscle spindle, who can effectively sense the stretch that is happening in the muscle. When you are tapping the tendon with your knee hammer, you are invariably producing a mildest of the mildest stretch on this extrafusal muscle fibers. That initiates this deep tendon reflex. Okay, so what happens invariably? Your biceps goes for a mild contraction and you get a slight jerk movement. Fine. So this is the reflex arc. So what we actually do by means of assessing this thing is we are finding the integrity of the reflex arc. For a normal reflex to happen, what are the essential things? The effector organ should be fine, that is the muscle spindle should be in correct shape. The afferent fibers should be in second. The afferent fibers which are carrying the information from the muscle spindle to the posterior horn cell should be fine. Then the anterior horn cell numbers should be sufficient. Then the efferent nerve fiber, that is the motor nerve fiber, this should be fine. And then the effector organ, that is the muscle, this should be fine. So how many? The integrity of 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So these 5 structures we are testing by means of a reflex arc assessment. In case if there is a diminished reflex, what is the inference, and if it is an increased reflex, what is the inference? We will see in the next class. Until then, bye bye.